1,000 better
1,000
stories.
better
1,000 better stories.
1,000 better stories.
You're listening to 1,000 Better Stories, the Scottish Communities Climate Action Network's podcast sharing stories of community-led climate action in Scotland to help us all imagine the better and fairer future and transform what we think is possible. Welcome to our Everyday Changemakers series. We blethers with everyday people taking climate action in their communities. Hello, it's Kaska, your story weaver. Welcome to the last episode of our mini-series on flooding and adaptation, which marks the first anniversary of the devastating October floods in the northeast Scotland. In today's episode, we go back to Banchory of October 2023, when I visited Plenty Festival at the Barn, the local arts centre. You can listen to the interview with the Barn's head of programme at the time, Simone Stewart, at the start of this series. Here is the other Everyday Changemaker interview from that visit, recorded on a sunny Friday afternoon before the torrential rain arrived and interrupted my plans to meet up with more of the Banchory-based Changemakers. In this story, I chat to Marie-Anne Brown, a manager at the Banchory Magpie shop. We catch up again a few weeks ago to look back on the effects of last year's storms. I started my Magpie visit with a guided tour.
Let's have a look. Let's have a look around. We've got two units here at Magpie. So this is what we call Unit 5, which is more our sort of vintage furniture, electrical shop. So as you can see, this is all items that people have no longer wanted in their household. You can see there's a huge variety of different items.
Yeah, nice comfy couches.
Yeah.
Oh, like that purple chair. That's
Purple
nice.
chair, it's good.
I wish I could take that home.
I don't think you'll get it on
the
bike. We do have this sort of area which is to the side. We call it the restore area.
Oh yeah.
So anything that comes in here would be things that people might want to look at, maybe upcycling. And as we go across, this is Unit 3, so this is your normal, like your standard charity shop. And it's a push. Yeah, sorry.
Right, okay, thank you.
So we've just actually updated this shop completely. So we've got a carpet. It was given to us for free from Global Underwater Hub from their Subsea Expo, and then we upcycled all our units, so the team of volunteers and staff.
It looks really nice.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do. So this has just actually been finished off today, so I had somebody in doing that today.
Wonderful.
Which is very much a working office, so it's where we do all the electricals. It's where we process anything that's maybe we're not 100% sure what value it'll have. It's more likely got a higher value. And we've got an eBay shop, so we put the things on that higher value that wouldn't sell in the shop.
Wow.
So these are the really unusual stuff. I think that's a crocodile skin one, but I think that's going to have to go out. So
It's a bag, isn't it?
it's a bag. So we work with trading standards, so we're always making sure that whatever we're putting out is correct. So this particular bag has got its own customs letter with it.
Oh, so it's fully legal.
So, but we're not allowed to sell it. But it's interesting the different things that people... So I'm Marie-Anne Brown. I am the manager at Magpie. Magpie is Aberdeenshire Voluntary Action Social Enterprise. We call it AVA. So it's a big third sector interface. So Magpie is separate from what the inner workings of Aberdeenshire Voluntary Action would do. So I am here to run what the charity itself does. I live in Banchory myself, so I'm only up the road as well. And have been aware of Magpie, which has been around since 1999, but it was originally the box room back then as well. So it's been well known within the area for a long time.
So tell me about a favourite place where you live in Banchory, I guess.
Oh, it's so difficult. I think that we're so lucky and we're so spoiled actually in the area that we're on Royal Deeside, and if you spend any time going along the River Dee, it's just even walking up, we've got the Deeside Way that you can go along, and that's lovely to get a chance to just have a wee wander down to the Dee itself and have a picnic. Used to do that when the kids were little. So it's a really, really nice place to kind of spend a lot of time, especially when the weather's really nice as well, which we can be quite lucky in the summer actually this way. Yeah.
It's lovely, at least with today's weather.
Yeah, we were quite lucky today.
How did you get involved in this work? And also, how do you think climate emergency or awareness of that might overlap with the work that you do here?
I mean, my dad worked with Forestry Commission, which is now Forest and Land Scotland. So I've always been aware of the environmental side of things. And I went back to university later on in life and did my environmental degree as well. So I've always been really, really interested in what we do, what our impact is, but also the sort of intrinsic values that we put on everything. So what we put on animals, what we put on us as humans. So I then went off and worked with wildlife charities. So I worked with Scottish Wildlife Trust and RSPB for a little while. And then I remember when I was doing my degree, I was just really passionate about what change people could make. You know, what the little changes are that we could make that would make such a difference to where we are sitting right now. And I think when coming on board, I came on board during COVID to here. So I was meant to be going away to work somewhere else, but actually decided that right now during COVID it wasn't great. I had the kids at home. So I started to volunteer just a couple of weeks here. And then when the manager's post came up, I then applied for the job. But it was just to see the actual impact of what we were doing at the charity, to see what we were saving, who we were helping, so our social responsibility as well as our climate responsibility, and really promoting the reuse side. That's really where we're at right now. So trying not to always go down the recycling side, but the reuse side, and just seeing how that can help somebody that couldn't afford to new stuff, but also it stops it going to landfill and the environmental impact of that as well.
When I say circular economy, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Reuse. That's the first thing. Somebody doesn't need something, that goes back out into a charity, social enterprise business. Then that then goes back out to somebody else that needs it. And I look at it from the reuse cycle. And that's where circular economy for me, where businesses, charities and what people no longer need are all working together.
Do you have any examples in your own life that you deploy circular economy?
Apart from my work life, I suppose with working in this charity in particular, I buy from here. I buy second-hand clothing. I got all my summer wardrobe this year, and then I donate that stuff back. So that's how that I practice. But my kids are the same. My husband's the same. We don't go and buy things straight away. We wait till see if it comes in as well. And I think with us, we've got a sheet, like a book that we keep people's names if we're waiting for something to come in. So that helps to, rather than just go and buy something brand new, we'll just kind of sit back and wait for it to come in. So personally, I have furnished my daughter's bedroom with the stuff from here. I got a new washing machine from here, which was second hand, and yeah.
And how do you feel that this kind of approach helps the environment, the planet?
I think it stops stuff going to landfill. That's what it does. Also, it's looking from the cradle to the grave, isn't it? Where things are made and how they're made and what they're made by. Like mobile phones, IT equipment in particular, they've got precious metals inside them, and it's where that's been made and then where it's coming to, and then how it's being disposed of. So if you're stopping the lots and lots of products being made because people are buying second hand, so they're not needing new, that'll slow that down. But then also stuff's not going into the landfill side of things, so that then saves having to dispose of these items which can be toxic and have lots of different issues with them.
Electronics are pretty horrible.
Yeah, they are.
What's the biggest challenge you think this project has encountered so far?
I think sometimes it's people not being aware that we're here, although we're known in the Banchory area. Well, we cover the whole of Aberdeenshire South, which is a huge area. So I think sometimes it's people not knowing why we're here and what we're doing here. I also think sometimes we're not a dumping ground, I call it. So yes, we want to reuse everything. So we do want people to take their donations here, but there's some items that you just ultimately, there's nothing you can do. You can't repair them and they do have to go to waste. And I think that's always tricky when somebody's packed their car up and they've come to the shop and they've went to all that effort and you've got to turn down stuff. People can get quite annoyed at you for that. So we try to politely say to them as much as we can. It's costly for us if we get items in that we can't do anything else with. So it costs us money to take it to the recycling centres. Whereas customers, if they took them, it doesn't cost them anything.
And what do you try to do to overcome these challenges? Is there any tips you can share with people?
It's having your staff and your volunteers very, very aware of what their rights are. So where they stand in it. So I've got procedures and policies written so that they are there to know what this is when we can take donations, this is when we can refuse donations, and have it written so that they can point to it. And I always think if you've got something you can point to that is written there, then customers almost go, well, there's nothing else I can say. It's there for them in black and white, okay. And then it's good for the volunteers as well, because it's not their responsibility to really have any kind of confrontation or arguments with anybody, but it's good for them to say there's nothing else I can do about it. It's written down, that's what the policy procedure is.
What's your most cherished possession?
What, apart from my children?
They're not possession. Can't own your
Can you
kids.
not own your children? No. I think anything that's been given to me that means something. So I suppose like my rings, my wedding rings, have got a meaning to them. I've got necklaces that have a meaning to them. So things that I've got, there's a story behind why you've got it. So I like anything that's got a story behind it. And it's the same when people donate here and you get a donation that somebody's got a good story behind it.
Most useful resource you would point to for people who would like to do similar work in their communities? Is there something that you've used yourself since you joined the project?
I think it's always interesting when you look at what your network is around you. I think networking is always a brilliant thing for looking at what's already in the area, who's already doing what and where do you fit in with that. And I think looking at the groups, the membership groups that you can get involved with. And I remember coming on board, and then I've been the manager here for a year and a half. I've been with Magpie for 3 years, and I've worked a little bit with Circular Community Scotland, and then over the last year and a half I've been to quite a few of the events, spoke to them quite a lot, and I find that our membership with them is hugely beneficial because they are there to network. They can connect you with people that are doing something similar to yourself, to get advice. They're very there to support you in your circular economy journey, your reuse side of things, and they're very much there as a support. So you can reach out to them, ask them any questions, and they'll try and answer it for you. And if they can't, they'll find somebody else that can.
Yeah, their website is pretty brilliant.
It's
actually.
pretty good, yeah.
Do you have a personal motto?
I've always said it, and I don't know why it's now on an advert, but I've said it for a very long time. If we change a little, we change a lot. And I know it's now on an advert, but I said it years and years and years ago. And I've said it to my kids, to family. I was speaking to the head teacher at one of the schools years ago, I think it was before lockdown. And it was very much about what the little things is that we can change as humans. What is it that we can do? It can be very overwhelming when we think of what's happening right now and the climate change. And I remember when I was doing my degree that I felt really, really overwhelmed about everything. When you look at the international side of stuff as well as your local side, is how do we do this? But actually, if everybody does, have a smaller, shower, turn your heating down a little bit, keep the lights off, put the TVs off at the wall, all those little things, actually, if everybody did it, it makes such a huge difference. So that's more where that would be my motto.
It's great, and it's something concrete you can do as well.
Yeah.
Right, community work can be very challenging, especially when you're sort of thinking about the climate at the same time. What keeps you going? How do you take care of yourself?
Of myself as
a human
as being. A human health and well-being.
Yeah.
I've got a really good support system at home. So family, friends, being able to spend time with them. Things can get really busy as well, so you don't always get the time, but it's always making sure that you do take that time out. And this is quite a job where you can get really passionate about what you're doing, and the team is here that's fantastic. So sometimes you forget to shut off, so it is taking that time away to step back and sit and have a little read of a book, or go and take the dog for a walk, or spend some time with your friends and family.
Go to the River Dee.
Go to the River Dee.
I ask this question of everybody, and this is sort of trying to travel into the future, let's say 10 years from now, and imagining that everybody's done everything possible to make the world fairer as well as a nicer place to live. Maybe go to your favourite place in Banchory or where you live, where you stay, and try to imagine what sounds there are around you, what smells there are around you, How does it feel?
I think right now it gives me actually anxiety. And has anybody's ever walked out in the woods and closed your eyes and had that time where you've listened to the nature that's around you? In 10 years' time, will I still hear the same birds? Will there still be the trees, or will that all be gone? How will the river be, if we're down at the Dee? That's probably, it sounds not as positive. Actually, it sounds probably quite negative. But I suppose that's why it's important that we do the work that we're doing.
It's sort of more trying to create positive memories of the future that you would want to happen.
Well, then it'll have exact opposite. You'll have more nature. You would hear more of the birds that you should be hearing. You would see lots of native creatures, so you'd love to see like the red squirrels running about, and love the otters and the running about, things like that going on. It's more a nature thing. That's where you would love to be standing, surrounded by that. It'd be interesting to see how this type of work will be done in 10 years' time, or how many changes, because everything has to evolve. So this will change. It will evolve into something else, I would imagine.
What do you think it might be?
Everything now is looking at upskilling people. So it's getting people to know how to learn how to repair stuff. It's helping younger people to learn how to do things that they're not learning maybe at school. Practical side of stuff. Your social responsibility will come in and who you're supporting. So that will be the kind of community side of stuff. You'd end up more a community hub that would work along with other community hubs that are going on as well. I know there's work that's been done already in Banchory as well, so I think that's always important that we link up when we're looking to do stuff like that. Well, I think that SCCAN in number 1, I think they do a little bit of upskilling. They have little classes and stuff that goes on, because there's things that everybody can do. Where we sit and where they sit and where we could all sit together. And, yeah.
Anything else you would like to share with the listeners that we haven't covered?
Well, right now there's a Friends of Magpie group that's set up. So we're just in the middle of the Just Transition Fund vote right now, which is going on. So it's not us personally that's gone for it, but the Friends of Magpie has. But if it comes off, it means that we would get our own new van, which would be amazing, because Magpie itself, we don't own a van, we lease it, so it would be amazing to be able to have one that would be, well, not ours, but would be Friends of Magpies, but it would be ours to solely use, and to be able to kind of have more work being done to improve what we're doing already. I mean, as it stands just now, Magpie, we save 22 tonnes from landfill a year, and we'll only look to increase that as well. We also work with people in need, so Magpie's got the two things to it. So we've got the sort of climate side, the environmental impact that we have, but our social responsibility, we look after people in need. So we look after emergency cases of people that have been made homeless or have got new housing, and that can be many different reasons why many different people end up in the circumstances they're in. So we've got quite a few cases actually coming up. They all seem to happen at once. You can be very quiet and then lots will happen at the same time. And making sure that people are getting a bed and getting a sofa and getting something. And then we work with Aberdeenshire South Food Bank as well. So we've always got emergency food parcels on site. So we can provide emergency food parcels as well to people. So that's another kind of thing that we do here.
Excellent. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
No problem, thank you.
I caught up with Marie-Anne Brown again in late October this year, online. My first question was about the outcome of the van funding bid.
The fantastic job that the Friends of Magpie did meant that we did get the van. So we took delivery of the van last November, and it's been trundling away doing lots and lots of work over the last year. I think we went up from last year's 25 tonnes we saved from landfill, but we're on kind of track to do about 42 now this year. So having a reliable van on the road and has been amazing.
I just wondered whether you have any memories of that weekend, or just generally the other storms that happened last October, because then, we had the Storm Babette that came through.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, I think for us, we had to close, 3 days last year in October. I remember that weekend because I just started a new member of staff, and then he got a couple of days off because of the bad weather. And I think that it's the same with any storms. So it definitely affected us, and actually quite a lot of the storms that happen, with especially things that are high winds. I think there's storms that happened in January as well. You have to close because you have to keep everybody safe. The buildings are quite secure, but you also, you always wonder if something happens to the roof or the doors fling open, and you don't want staff making their way in, you don't want volunteers making their way in. And then the workings of the charity still have to continue, so you're kind of all hunkered down at home, and I've got WhatsApp groups for the staff and WhatsApp groups for the volunteers and staff, so you're kind of trying to keep them, like playing little games on WhatsApp, or you're doing stuff to keep them going. You're trying to keep them doing something, and keeping in contact to make sure that they're okay as well at home. And you're almost having that community resilience kind of thing where you're making sure that you're checking in on everybody to make sure they've got what they need. I've got a bad weather policy and procedure in place now, and it's looking at it going, okay, how many days do we expect now to be shut a year, rather than it being unexpected that we'll probably have to close. It is going to be expected that we have to close, and everything is planning really beforehand, and then so when something does happen, because we've done the plan, we're ready for it. Actually, the bad weather is going to happen consistently. I mean, we've probably had to shut for 8 days in a year, maybe more. But you're not only that, you're taking the van off the road because it's a large van. You can't put it on the road. It's too dangerous to drive it. So you're not able to go out and do the collections and the gifting. So the service almost comes to a halt because of that as well. So there's lots of different effects that happen.
So I guess it also makes all the people that you're helping more vulnerable.
Yeah. You do kind of feel like you're in a Formula One team sometimes when there's a bad weather warning coming and you've got the weather reports up on your screens and watching what's coming.
Did any of the storms affected your family at all?
So we've been quite lucky where we are. Our power lines are underground, so they don't get affected when it's bad winds and bad weather. But what we do get is internet will go off. It doesn't go off for too long because we're in the kind of main village or town. Although I've got family that live in the area, so like my granny, she's got cut off phone and stuff, so you have to kind of judge whether you go down and visit. But yeah, I went down and spent a bit of time sitting with her, made sure that she had food, and she was more than welcome to come to mine, but she's quite stoic, my granny. She'll sit in the house. She's old farming stock, so she's like, no, I'm fine. I've got staff and volunteers that are in outer areas, and they really get affected because when the power goes out, it's out for days, and their internet is down for days, and being contactable is quite difficult. So you see that happening, and there's like community food vans that will go out into specific areas to make sure that people are getting hot water and fed. I think that people aren't always realising how easy it is to be cut off still in this day when bad weather happens. And I think when we're looking at moving away from sort of coal fires and wood burner, things like that, actually some of these communities are off the grid, and that's the only way they'll get heat. And I sometimes wonder if they just don't think about these areas that are outlying that can easily be cut off in these extreme conditions.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, isn't it? Was it the recent legislation that's stopped putting fireplaces in new built homes?
Yeah.
So that's not particularly helpful for emergencies like this.
No, I think they were trying to get places like Braemar as well. I think they were trying to move them away from having these open fires, but actually the community there had said, well, what are we supposed to do when these extreme weather conditions happen? And they're only going to continually happen. It's not going to improve. I think that there needs to be a lot more thought into not just thinking from a town city perspective, but actually from outlying areas, remote areas perspective when they're looking at legislation.
That kind of increased flooding or storms, has they affected the way that you think about the role of Magpie and the work that you do in community?
I was looking at stuff to do with SSCN and like the community resilience and where Magpie sits within that.
Can you say what SSCN is?
It's the Scottish and Southern Electrical Network, I think. So I was having a look at that, and actually what I was thinking was we support people by gifting to people that are in need through housing requests that come in, and Grampians Women's Aid and Turning Point and different associations. But actually when it comes to people that might lose furniture or clothing, and that Magpie could play a vital role of a place where people can come and get essential items to try and even just initially to get themselves something until they're back on their feet. Certainly we have a role that we can play there. We work in partnership with the food bank as well, so there's a way of looking at that. Well, we can maybe get emergency food parcels to people quickly and quite a lot because we've got the van that can do that. So I do think that we do have a role to play in looking forward. It's looking at working in partnership with the community of Banchory, the Banchory Community Trust, and looking at how we can make sure we've got a kind of action plan in place that when these things happen, who is going to be there to help provide what the community needs at that point.
It was good to hear that Marianne is thinking about the ways Magpie can connect with others locally to provide a better response to emergencies caused by stormy weather. The weather that, by the sounds of it, has turned from a rare extreme exception to a regular annual occurrence over the last few years where she lives. I've linked information about SCCAN Powering Communities to Net Zero Fund that Marie-Anne mentioned in the episode notes. This includes funding for community-led physical and environmental resilience for communities within the SCCAN supply areas and is worth checking out. We also have an update on the Scottish New Build Heat Standard that from April this year no longer allowed wood, coal or peat burning stoves in new buildings. Based on feedback from rural and island communities, the government implemented an amendment on the 8th of November reversing this ban. One of the main reasons for this was reliance on such stoves in rural settings when extreme weather disrupts electricity supply. In this mini-series, we touched on the way an art organisation responded to extreme weather through their commissions and programming, the role and the barriers to regenerative farming in managing water and flooding at landscape scale, the incorporation of practical adaptation measures into the net zero standard design of public buildings, and a community organisation starting to think of connecting with others over local resilience plans. That's just a few threads of a climate adaptation story, many of them just emerging into reality from the concern over the increase in extreme rainfall and winds that we're starting to experience here in Scotland as climate change takes hold of our planet. It's only a start, and we will need to do much more and probably much quicker than we'd like to. So we've been thinking about community-led adaptation at SCCAN recently, and we would love for you to get in touch with your stories, ideas and questions. You can find a collection of resources and contact details on our dedicated adaptation page are linked in the show notes. You will also find a monthly summary of relevant adaptation news and resources there. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and share it with others. It'll really help us reach a wider audience. If something exciting is happening in your own community, be sure to let us know so that we can help you tell your own story. You can drop our story weavers a line at stories@scan.scot. It's scan, SCCAN, .scot, SCOT. We also offer training and mini-grant support to community storytellers. To keep up to date with our offerings and everything SCAN, check out our website at scan.scot or find us on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram, or simply sign up to the newsletter.